Hi guys, and welcome back to Lasting Peace. I just finished writing my second book. It is a Bible study, and the topic is spiritual maturity. The title is still in debate. I'm thinking about something along the lines of Beyond Belief. Jesus saved you, now what? A study on spiritual maturity. Um, that makes it sound like I think I might have achieved spiritual maturity, but I'll state right now that no, I haven't. And that's something we actually address in the study. How Paul even talks about spiritual maturity not as something that is achieved or attained or ever mastered or a notch in our belt, something that we look to someone and say, oh, they are mature. And along those lines, I have been learning by leaps and bounds, I feel like with many tears over the last week since my husband has deployed, just numerous things that God has taken the time in the silence and in my solitude to teach me. And one of them came really close to home this morning as I was listening to a sermon by Louis Giglio of Passion City Church in Atlanta. And I will put a link to that sermon underneath this video. But he did it in a series called Goliath Must Fall. And then he named or called out certain giants in our lives. And this was part 4 in the series, and it said that comfort must fall. Think about that. Goliath was the enemy. He was the one that was out to destroy the armies of Israel, and God raised up the warrior in David, who is a type of Christ, who pictured Christ to come to slay this giant. And so we're looking possibly at comfort as not necessarily a good thing. And I will let you listen to Louis to get the full understanding and see how that might apply to your life. But for me, I was just realizing, and I had to turn around and write this letter to my husband, that I feel like perhaps I have an addiction to comfort. I've looked at this deployment perhaps as something that's not fair. It's a hurdle in our marriage, or something to get past, to get beyond. And I looked at the eating disorder honestly in the same way. If that's something you deal with, think about it from that perspective. That we must conquer this thing that makes our life uncomfortable, that we must get beyond it to get to our real life. As in, God will be actually living in the center of God's will when we get to that sweet spot, that comfortable spot. And that's not true. God never once told us that we would be comfortable in this life. He did tell us, Christ did, that he came to make our joy complete and to give us abundant life, but all those things are not dependent on our level of comfort. And so I want to actually take a new look. I want to have a different perspective on this deployment, not as something that is to be tackled or conquered or overcome or get beyond. And perhaps maybe even look at your eating disorder or another addiction that way. Yes, it's something that you need to recover from, but what is in the middle of that? What is at the seat of that? What is God trying to do in our lives through that sense of discomfort? And maybe even recovery doesn't mean being comfortable. There will always be something, if you're pursuing Christ, that will leave you uncomfortable and unsettled, so that we continue to press on hard after Christ and realize that he is the one and only thing that satisfies. So anyway, I'm curious your thoughts on that. I would love to hear from you, either here on YouTube or on my blog, predatory-lies.com. And we will begin, hopefully, in these next coming weeks to talk a little bit more about spiritual maturity and the upcoming Bible study. So make sure you check the link below this video for Louis Giglio's sermon, and I'll see you next week. Thanks.